So we feel like real human beings, real personalities, real individuals. You know, this is who I am, this is what I'm like. We identify with all the categories we fit into, with all the descriptive adjectives that we've given ourselves and others have given us. We feel that we really are those things, and that behind all of it there's a real person. And so holding on to this real person, a great deal of attachment, then we adopt the perspective of looking through the senses in terms of what helps us and what harms us. What will please this real person, what will harm this real person. And so this is just the natural way that we look at everything, and it's so automatic that we don't even realize that we're doing it. That we're setting ourselves off as a unique, findable individual, and then seeing everybody else and everything else in terms of what pleases us and what displeases us. And we think that all of that is reality. And so all these appearances of this life are very strong to us. We believe in them. We believe that they're real. We believe that they're the most important thing. And so we completely lose track of the big picture. We lose track of the causes that brought us here, the effects that will result from what we're doing now. We lose any kind of feeling about other living beings as people who feel as intensely as we do, as people who want to be happy and don't want to suffer as intensely as we do. So we really live through quite a distorted periscope on the world. And forget about not understanding the ultimate nature. We don't even understand the conventional nature properly. And yet we desperately want to be happy, be safe, and unable to find a fixed situation that brings us this. We're always running around looking for something. something that we don't have, that if we only had, then we'd feel happy and secure. But we never find it. So you can see that the whole mess comes from our own mind, from the ignorance, the self-centeredness in our own mind. And until we free ourselves from that, we can try and change everything on the outside. But it's really a very wearying and fatiguing task that won't bring us what we really want. So we have to really sum up our courage to be able to look at things as they are, both on the ultimate level and on the conventional level. And then live according to the big picture, the inclusive picture. And so as we try and stretch our mind to grasp that big picture, let's stretch it to include the welfare of each and every living being. Stretch it, that welfare, to include their awakening as well as our own. And stretch our mind to see that there's no harm in following this path to awakening. It's only going to benefit us. So with that kind of motivation, then let's see what Nagarjuna has to tell us this evening. So we'll read the 20 verses because that's what we're on. And I did figure out we had the second verse on page 104. We should take the and out between joy and equanimity. So may they be adorned with love, compassion, joy, equanimity in the face of hardship, generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, and so on. Okay, so take out the and. So let's do this and try and think about it as we're saying it. And since it starts out with honoring all the Buddhas, think of how you would honor all the Buddhas. You know, if it were up to you, how would you honor all the Buddhas? What would you do to honor them? Yeah.
Practicing well.
Practicing well, huh? Yeah. That's a big one, huh? Praising them is easy. Practicing well is not so easy. We have to do both. Okay. Honoring in all ways the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and also the Bodhisattvas. In them I take refuge and pay homage to those worthy of homage. I turn away from all negativity and embrace all kinds of merit. I rejoice in all merit amassed by all sentient beings. With bowed heads and palms together, I beseech all perfect Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma and remain as long as beings remain. Through the merit of doing this and the merit I have done and will do, may all sentient beings be endowed with unsurpassed bodhicitta. May all sentient beings have immaculate faculties and transcend the unfree states. May they control their own actions and live by right livelihood. May all sentient beings have jewels in their hands, and may a limitless amount of all kinds of accessible beings remain inexhaustible for as long as cyclic existence endures. At all times, may all women become supreme persons. May all beings be endowed with intelligence and legs. May all beings have a good complexion and also a good physique. May they be radiant and pleasant to behold. Free of illness, may they be strong and live long. May have all beings as greedy skillful means and become free of all dukkha. May they become devoted to the three jewels and have the great treasure of the Dharma. May they all be adorned with love, compassion, joy, equanimity in the face of hardship, generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, loyal effort, meditative stability, and wisdom. Thus adorned, may they complete all collections and attain brilliant signs and marks. May they traverse without hindrance the 10 grounds to the inconceivable. May I also become adorned with these good qualities and all others as well. May I become free of all faults, and may I attain supreme love of all beings. May I be bereft of virtue at which all beings aspire, and may I always dispel the dukkha of all embodied beings. In all worlds, may all beings who are feeling anxious due to fear become completely fearless merely hearing my name. Jing and Bidong for hearing me of my name. May all beings become clear-minded and undisturbed and at ease. May it be definite that they will awaken, and in all their future lives may they attain the 5 super knowledges. In all ways, may I always do what benefits to all beings. May I always dissuade all at once beings of any world and tend to engage in negativity without doing them any harm. Like the earth, water, wind, and fire, medicinal herbs and trees in the wilderness, may I always freely be an object of enjoyment by all beings as they wish. May I be beloved of beings, and may they be more beloved to me than myself. May I bear the results of their negativity, and may they have the results of all my virtue. As long as there is even one sentient being somewhere that's not yet free, may I remain in the world for that being's sake, even if I have attained peerless awakening. If the merit of making such statements were to be material, it would not fit into worlds as numerous as the grains of sands of the Ganges. This is what the Blessed One said, and the reason is here to be seen. The worlds of beings are measurable, and the intention to aid them is likewise. We finished 466. That was talking about prostrations and offerings as ways of honoring, and then taking refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. And then last week we started on 47, I turn away from all negativity and embrace all merit. So the way it's worded, I turn away from all negativity, it's not just like I confess all my previous negativity. It's also I'm making a determination to turn away from it in the future. Okay? So the way it's worded really gets you to think about the 4 opponent powers. Okay, so to have regret, but not guilt. Yeah, to rely on sentient, the three jewels, and change our attitude towards them if the negativity was related to them by taking refuge. And if the negativity was related to sentient beings, to generate love, compassion, and bodhicitta towards them. And then to really make a determination to turn away in the future from such actions. And then doing some kind of remedial behavior, some kind of virtue to kind of make up for what you did. Yeah? It's like even before you met Dharma, if you do something really bad towards somebody, you try and do something good towards them afterwards to make up. So it's that kind of idea, but also with regret, changing our attitude and making a determination to avoid it in the future. So here with this branch of also with it says I'll turn away from all negativity and I'll embrace all merit. So not only will I stop my negative actions, but I'll make an effort to create positive ones. Okay, so it's really, not just, okay, I goofed and I'm sorry, but, I'm going to really put some effort into doing something worthwhile now. In this whole thing of the practice of repentance, which has regret and a determination not to do it again, it's very helpful to think of the kinds of things that we should, when we're looking back at our life, the kinds of things that we may have done that need to be confessed and purified. Yeah? And so really thinking, in terms of sentient beings, it's very clear. The 10 non-virtues, that's very clear. And then anything that fits within the 10 non-virtues, even though it's not actually one of them. So, for example, being physically violent towards someone isn't one of the 10, but it falls under killing. Okay? So just because it isn't listed as one of the 10, don't think, well, that one's not so important. Okay? So, really look at all the kind of branches and different ways we can do all these different kinds of things. Yeah, similar, with lying, there's so many different ways we can lie, so many different kinds of lies we can tell, so many people we can lie to, so many things we can do to justify our untruths. Yeah, so really taking stock of all that and being very frank and straightforward with ourselves. Yeah, and so the more we're able to do this and clean up stuff from the past, then the lighter we're going to feel, the more unencumbered we'll feel right now in, when we relate to different people. Whereas if we don't clean up the stuff from the past, something's always kind of weighing on us, and we don't feel good about it. We're anxious, we're worried, what happens if somebody finds out what I did before? What are they going to think of me? What are they going to do if they find out I did da-da-da-da-da? Okay, whereas if we just are able to put it out there and really clean it up, you don't have all these kinds of problems. And then but not only looking at the negativities done towards sentient beings, but also the ones towards the holy beings. Okay, and so, regarding the Buddha, criticizing the Buddha, yeah, at the Buddha's time, lots of people criticized him, with anger. Yeah, so this is criticizing with anger. And, using statues, selling statues and Buddha images to make a living, and then as kind of a branch of that, wanting to have expensive, beautiful statues and so forth on your altars so that all your friends will think that you're really wonderful and you're very, you're very devout and maybe a little bit rich too. Uh, yeah, so how we use that, or what we were talking about last week, offerings that were given to the Buddha, then we take for ourselves and use them. In terms of the Dharma, not treating the books properly. And so here, in terms of our relations to the statues and the books and these kinds of things, it isn't because we're worshiping pieces of material. It's because these material things symbolize the internal qualities of an awakened being, which is what we want to become and what we take refuge in. Okay? So it's not that if we mistreat Buddha statues that the Buddha's getting mad at us or something. Yeah. It's just, you can see, oh, this represents those qualities that I want to attain. And if I don't respect the representation, then it's like I'm dissing what they represent as well. And so the same thing with the books and so on, putting them on the floor, putting worldly things on top of them, that kind of stuff. Yeah, to be careful about that, stepping over them, so to really respect the text. And then the Sangha, the Arya Sangha that we take refuge in, is one thing. So we may have committed negativities regarding them, but the representation of the Arya Sangha as a community of 4 more fully ordained people. Yeah, and so being really careful with the possessions of the Sangha community, for example. So. And this is really easy to be careless about. We take something that belongs to the Sangha without asking permission, claiming it for ourselves. Like if you're working in the kitchen, and so we get some kind of offering and there aren't enough to go around for each individual. So instead of putting them out anyway and letting people take what they can take, you decide, well, I might as well eat them all. They aren't enough to go around and it's something I like. So, I'll just eat them and then there won't be a problem because there's not enough to go around. We laugh, but we do this. Yeah. Or, I'm cooking and, there's something really delicious, but again, I can't use it all for the dish for everybody, so I'll just take this little bit for myself. Yeah. No, it should be everything is put out. And, and then once it's taken back into the kitchen, it isn't freely offered anymore, unless we have certain policies, for people who've been, if you're traveling and you're not home in time for the meal, or if you've been out doing physical work or something like that. But aside from that, we just don't go in the kitchen and decide, gee, I haven't had XYZ for a long time, and, I think it'd be nice to have this. And then just take it without asking the person in the kitchen. Okay? In terms of other things, toilet paper, tissue, toiletries, we all know those things are freely offered. We can go in and take them. But if you're a guest at a Sangha community, you don't go into their storage room and take things. You ask a resident, If the resident says, yes, go in and take it, then you can take it. But you don't just go in, even if you're a Sangha member, into somebody else's storage room or into their cupboards or whatever like this. It's kind of like when you're staying at somebody else's house, unless they say, make yourself at home, you don't go rummaging through their drawers, even though you're staying in the guest room, and and so on. So we have to be very careful about the Sangha property. The reason for that is that it's very hard to, well, one reason is that it's very difficult to purify this, because if you go back to apologize, very often not the same Sangha members as were there when you took what wasn't freely offered are not there when you're going to make amends. Okay, so you want to, it's difficult to purify that karma with the Sangha. Okay, so especially, if you're any kind of responsibility that you have in the community, it's very tempting, to take a little perk of it for ourselves. Yeah, if you're doing the books or something, it's easy, well, just slip in a little bit more, I'll borrow something, and I'll remember, so I won't put a note in that I borrowed X amount, and then it goes, and that's stealing from the Sangha, okay? Or, with stamps and things like that, then, unless it's freely offered, a lot of our stationery supplies are freely offered, other ones aren't, then to give something in return to the community, simply to protect ourselves from the karma. But for the things that are freely offered, like all the envelopes that have we recycle, then then that's fine. Okay. Similarly, with Sangha robes, to especially our 3 robes, to treat them respectfully. So, when we're putting on our shemdap, we never step into it. It always goes over our head. Yeah, when we're sitting with our chugu on, we always lift the back of the chugu before we sit down so that we're not sitting on it. Yeah, same thing with the namjar. Yeah, you keep your robes neat, you keep them clean, and so on like that. You can use them to cover yourself. If you're traveling or somewhere where, you're cold, you can use them to put over you, but not under you. Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, purifying in terms of our 3 sets of vows. Yeah, so whatever transgressions of our pratimoksha precepts, of our, I should say, rather than 3 sets of vows, 3 ethical codes. So the pratimoksha one, which include the 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, and all the different kinds of monastic precepts. Yeah, then the bodhisattva ethical code and the tantric ethical code. So to reflect on those things that we haven't kept very well, and purify them as well, and make a determination to do better in the future. And there's some things we know that it's going to be very hard, yeah, especially when you get to the tantric ethical code, very easy, and the bodhisattva too. Those are much easier to transgress than the pratimoksha. And so to just kind of aspire, I hope sometime in the future, I'm able to keep these, in a really pure way. But not just kind of shine things on and say, well, it doesn't matter, forget it. Okay. Then the last 2 lines of 467, I rejoice in all the merits amassed by all sentient beings. Okay, so all the merit amassed by sentient beings. So anybody who's not a Buddha is a sentient being. Okay, so we have ordinary childish sentient beings who haven't realized emptiness, and then we have Aryas. We have those who haven't entered a path, those who have entered a path. Yeah. And so to rejoice at the merit of all of them. So they say, and so if we rejoice at the merit of somebody who is more advanced on the path than we are, they say we get half, just simply by rejoicing, we get half the merit that they did in doing the action if we rejoice in it. If we rejoice in virtue that somebody equal to us on the path does, we get equal merit, we create equal merit. If we rejoice in the virtue of somebody who is lower on the path than we are, then we get even more merit then we create more merit by rejoicing than they did by doing the act. I find with myself that sometimes rejoicing at the people who have very little merit is like brings a lot of joy to my heart, because it's like, okay, the bodhisattvas, they have so much merit, already, so of course I rejoice. But here's somebody who, is real, whose mind is completely tangled up and overwhelmed by afflictions, and then they had this really beautiful intention and did this really wonderful act. And that brings a lot of joy, because it's so rare, I think. But probably mathematically wise, it's wiser to rejoice at those who have a lot of virtue already. But still,
bigger returns.
Bigger returns. But but I find it often, emotionally rewarding to be able to rejoice at the virtue of, people who don't have much virtue, who are just ordinary beings. And so that's why, sometimes, people often when they'll make a donation or something, they'll write something that's really beautiful, and you can tell at that moment they have a very, very good intention, very, very pure mind. You don't know the rest of their life what they're like, but at that moment, what they're expressing is just beautiful. And so I often like to copy those things out and put them in the e-news or whatever, because because they don't always happen so often. Whereas bodhisattvas, I think, just, every thought is virtue, so, Once here are, well, at least for pure ground bodhisattvas, for sure that's the case. Okay. The others are working towards it. So, also rejoicing is the way to overcome jealousy. So Zopa Rinpoche, when he does the seven limb prayer with people in a group, he always stops after this one. I rejoice in all the merit of, ordinary and beings and aryas, and then he stops for everybody to meditate. And I think that's because he realizes that a lot of the disciples have a lot of jealousy. And, and so jealousy, if we look, whether you're in robes or out of robes, jealousy just destroys your life. I think even more than anger, I think jealousy is destructive. Jealousy is a form of anger, actually. It's a branch of anger. But, when you're jealous, you just completely burn. Completely burn. And you're not just mad at somebody, you want to destroy their happiness and take their happiness for yourself. Isn't that what jealousy does when you're jealous? It's like, I cannot stand that person is happy. I cannot stand it. I want to destroy their happiness and take it because I'm the one who should have it. That's an awful mind, isn't it? I mean, it's, ew, you just even talk about it, it's like such a disgusting mind. You know? Because anger, okay, you're angry, you're ticked off, somebody did something, you get over it. Jealous, you sit there and stew and plot how to destroy somebody else's happiness or somebody else's virtue. Yeah. So whether you're joyous, you're jealous of, your ex-partner's new partner, yeah, which, burns you, yeah, or you're jealous because somebody else in the sangha gets more attention than you do, or gets to do something that you don't, or, whatever it is. Yeah, jealousy just, you can see how it destroys merit. Yeah, you can feel it inside of yourself, actually. Yeah, if you have sensitivity, what jealousy does to you inside. Yeah, can you? Can you feel it? Yeah. So, and sometimes in Buddhist groups, the jealousy is so intense among, the different people. Yeah, because everybody, wants to be high status or be recognized or be close to the teacher or get the extra smile or drive the teacher around or be praised by somebody or, have the nicest color shemmed up or, have the most authority in the what do you call it, the committee that's running the Dharma Center, or we all want to be, here am I, look at me, I'm special, I'm better than you are, I can sit cross-legged longer than you can. Yeah. I have a higher position than you do. That's more arrogance. Jealousy is, who do you think you are? You think you have a higher position than I have. Just because you're blah, blah, blah. Don't you realize who I am? What about my good qualities? Yeah. You think because you're a senior, you're just some big, Joe Blow who can, do this. You don't know that actually I'm superior to you. Yeah. 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 Oh, it's nasty. It's nasty. So, so that's why rejoicing is a very good practice, because it helps us to overcome the jealousy. Of course, when you're jealous, yeah, rejoicing is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to rejoice at somebody else's happiness. You want to destroy it when you're jealous, which is exactly why you need to rejoice in it instead of destroy it. Yeah?
You don't even want others to rejoice.
No, you want the other person to suffer. Yeah? Nobody else can rejoice at this person's good qualities or this person's opportunity or, whatever it is. Yeah. Nobody's allowed to rejoice.
Until they're mine.
Huh?
Until they're mine.
Yes, when they're mine, then everybody should notice. I have more opportunity than you do. I do this better than you do. I have higher status than you do. Yeah. So you should respect me. Yeah. So I love the people who, make sure to have a photograph of them together with the teacher on their altar. The teacher, yes, you want on your altar. Yourself? Here's me on the altar, with the teacher. So I must be pretty important. Aren't you jealous of me? Yeah. Or you go into somebody else's house and there's a picture of them with the teacher, and you just kind of melt. And then they start telling you all the stories, the little private stories about the teacher when they spent, the little anecdotes about that you only know if you happen to be around when, during off time. Yeah. And so you have the pleasure of telling all the funny stories about the teacher or about, whoever it is, in your workplace too. You get status if you're, you brown nose up to the boss or whatever. Okay, and then everybody gets jealous of you, and you like people when people are jealous of you. Yeah, but when you're jealous of others, something's wrong with them because they took away your happiness.
In rejoicing in the virtue of all the good quality, the virtue, that the merits of the bodhisattvas, when we do the 7 limb prayers, like just by saying the phrase, I rejoice in the virtues, in the merits of all sentient beings and the bodhisattvas and all of that, just by saying that, how, like rejoicing in all the good deeds they did, how, like just by saying it, I tapping into all of them.
Yeah, well, the 7 limb prayer.
How do you connect with your heart? Like
Yeah.
you try to imagine the whole universe full of beings.
Yeah, that's why it's really nice to do the long versions of the 7 limbs where you can think more about it, or also to do them slowly, to just recite one line and then sit and meditate about that line. We usually go, real fast to get through and without thinking about it. But if you really take time, this is a nice practice to do on planes. Yeah, is really go slowly through the 7 branch, prayer, and think about each one, and spend a lot of time. Yeah, and especially when you rejoice, if you really spend time rejoicing, you feel so happy afterwards. Yeah, you feel so happy. And I think that's one way too that you can see your progress on the path. I remember, because as you know, we sit in ordination order. So I remember, sitting in ordination order and looking up the line and, at my seniors, and that one does that wrong, and that one doesn't do this, which they should do, and this one does blah, blah, and picking faults at everybody who's, above me. And then looking at the juniors and picking faults with each one of them going down the line. And part of the faults are my jealousy, Oh, she learned to speak Tibetan and I didn't. But she makes mistakes when she translates. Yeah. So I have to put her down somehow, even though she's better than me. Yeah, because I wish that she didn't speak Tibetan and I did, and then I could be the big shot. Yeah? And so, you watch up the line, down the line, jealousy, criticism for everybody. Yeah. And then you can see when as you practice, if you're able to look up the line and feel really happy at the success of people who are better than you and know more than you do and practice better and so on. And if you can look down the line and see the same things, and really acknowledge everybody's good qualities and feel happy about them. When you can do that, then you know that somehow your Dharma practice is getting through to you. But But if every time you look this way and every time you look that way, all you have is complaints and faults and jealousy, then, yeah, then somehow you may be doing a lot of things, but it's not touching your heart. So you have to work with it and let it touch you, which means you have to be willing to give up your trip. Yeah, and be humble. And if you don't want to give up your trip, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be on a trip and go nowhere. The trip that goes nowhere versus giving up the trip and then going somewhere. Huh?
This is the cheapest trip.
Yeah, a very cheap trip. Cheap trip. Yeah. Yeah. No visa required. They're not going to turn you away at the border. Yeah.
About the rejoicing, I used to fish a lot, and I'd fish with other people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if they'd catch fish and I wouldn't, I would think that I was doing good to rejoice that they were. And then last night I had a dream that I was standing on the ice. We used to ice fish a lot with this friend Kenny, and I wasn't fishing because I don't fish anymore. And in the dream I was just standing there watching him fish, and he pulled up 2 fish and he was so excited. And I wasn't very excited at all. Good, because for me. But and then I realized, and I woke up this morning and I realized I needed to purify all the rejoicing I did at harm to the fish, because I've been doing a lot of purifying for fish that I've killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about how much I've rejoiced at other people doing harm, where I thought I was just rejoicing in their good fortune, but I was rejoicing in the poor fortune of that fish.
Yeah. And that brings up another point, really about being careful what we rejoice in. Yeah, if we're rejoicing in other people's virtue, or if we're rejoicing in their non-virtue. Yeah. And so that you have to be very careful about that also when you read the news, because it's very easy, some person that you don't respect very much, or somebody who's the enemy, and then something bad happens to them, to say good, yeah, or kill more of those beep beep beeps, or really rejoicing at others' non-virtue and at others' misfortune. And so that kind of thing just brings us down, doesn't it? Yeah. So, definitely, that was something to purify. I mean, in the 35 Buddhas, it says it very explicitly. Things I have done, encouraged others to do, rejoiced in others doing. Yeah, so, the non-virtues, not only mine, but what I've told other people to do, encouraged them to do, rejoiced when they've done it. Yeah. So to really purify those. And then, on the other hand, to, rejoice at others people's virtue, encourage them to do more. Yeah. Rejoice at our own virtue. Some people don't want to rejoice at their own virtue. They think they're too skittish. They think somehow it's selfish or unbecoming or whatever. And I think that's because, they're putting too much ego into the virtue. I mean, virtue is virtue. It's not yours. Yeah. So just rejoice. And feel happy that you did something good. We should feel happy when we do something kind, when we create virtue. We're not being proud. If you're getting proud because you're rejoicing at your own virtue, then that's not rejoicing, that's getting arrogant. Yeah. But if you just rejoice and say, hey, I'm making some progress, this is good, then you encourage yourself. And that's, you shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed about that. I mean, you don't go around to everybody, but in your own mind, you rejoice. Hmm? Because jealousy is so painful when it's in your heart, isn't it? Yeah? I mean, it eats at you in a really awful way. So, if you want to be happy, better to give it up. Yeah, those are the two. There's two things I think are the perfect forms of self-torture. You don't need waterboarding. Yeah. One is holding a grudge, a bitter grudge about somebody else, and the other is being jealous. Yeah. I mean, waterboarding can cause physical suffering, but those two states of mind, I think, cause a whole lot of mental suffering. Yeah. You may have other mental states that cause you more suffering than those two, but yeah. You think of others, those two are ones that I want to stay away from. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes attachment is just crazy too. Yeah. Okay, so I rejoice in all the merits amassed by all sentient beings. And so also, do spend time thinking of what the bodhisattvas are doing, because they create so much merit, and it's so nice, Like, wow, they can give up their body. That's fantastic. Maybe someday I'll be able to do that. Or wow, look at how some of the bodhisattvas behave, how humble they are. Yeah, and then these people with great qualities are so humble, and me, who has so few qualities, walking or strutting around like I'm a big shot. Yeah, to be able to really rejoice at other people's humility and the quiet ways that they do things to benefit others. Yeah, and rejoicing at their determination or their to-itiveness, So, yeah, it makes you feel good. When you can see other people who can do things really well and you can rejoice. Okay, then 468. With bowed head and palms together, I beseech all perfect Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma and remain as long as beings remain. Okay, so sometimes I feel in the seven limbs that these two are the ones that we're really getting at. That what we've done before, prostrating, making offering, confessing, rejoicing, is purifying our mind and getting us in the right frame. And then here we're actually requesting something. Yeah? So what are we requesting? It's not, please, can I have, put out more honey on the tea table? It's not that. It's with bowed heads and palms together instead of upright head and pointing finger. Yeah. So it's a very different state of mind. Okay. So we're asking all the Buddhas and our teachers to turn the wheel of Dharma, in other words, to teach us. Yeah. And we're also asking them to remain as long as sentient beings remain. Okay. So why? Why is it important? Yeah, I mean, the Buddhas attained awakening for the benefit of sentient beings. So they're going to teach whether we request them or not, and they're not going to go into parinirvana. because otherwise, why did they attain awakening? So they're going to do all these things. So why do we have to, bow our head and put our hands together and ask them? Yeah,
Because we're so self-centered. If we don't, we'll never listen to them.
yeah, exactly. Because we have to say to ourselves, the presence of the teachers, the presence of the Buddha in the world is really important. Yeah. It's these branches are in there not because the Buddhas need the request, but because we need to really see their importance and recognize that and state that. And how do we state it? By asking them to teach and asking them to remain. Yeah. So if you find that you don't really appreciate the teachings very much, like I remember in Seattle, it's like, oh, I miss teachings because I have to drive a half an hour to the center, and and I have to do this, I have to do that, or my child, this or that, or everybody always had so many other things that they needed to do, and we do too. Sometimes, even living in the monastery. Yeah. Like, oh, my little toe hurts, so I really can't make its teachings. And, my stomach's gurgling, so So, we always have something going on and can think of many reasons. Yeah, can't we? Yeah. So, so everybody thinks when they write on the whiteboard that everybody believes what they're writing. You think I believe what you're writing on those boards? Do you really think that I believe that? Huh? I can't hear you.
I don't believe either.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you don't believe either. But you're thinking that if you write it, other people will believe it. Yeah? Yeah, it's big excuses. Yeah. So, big excuses. So I remember when I was in Seattle, and people said, oh, it was just too far. I didn't feel like driving a half an hour to the center. And it was like, I quit my job, moved out of my flat, and went halfway around the world in order to get teachings. Yeah. And you can't spare a half an hour. I never said this to the people, but I sure thought it. In the sense of like, not in a sense of putting them down, but in the sense of, wow, you have no appreciation, or you have no ability to endure even the slightest bit of discomfort. Yeah. And so I think it's important to really think about these things. Yeah. And I know when I've spent my first years in India and Nepal, so I got a lot of teachings. I was around my teachers a lot. Then I got sent to Italy, And let me see, when I went there were, I think, 2 or 3 newly ordained Sangha. That was it. And lay people, and no teachings. I was the spiritual coordinator. I was the one who was supposed to sustain the whole thing. And it was like, I want my teacher. I need teachings too. And so it was when I was there completely out on my own. Also, when I got sent to Singapore, totally on my own, doing the job of a geshe, basically, even though I didn't have the qualities to do that. Then really beginning to realize, I want more teachings and I need more teachings myself. And all that time I spent being so close to the teachings and taking a lot of teaching, so often I just took it for granted. Yeah. I mean, I was pretty good about going to everything, but I still, the mind just, well, it's always there, so whatever. Not really appreciating the opportunity until you're out there on your own. And then you really appreciate being able to receive teachings, and you appreciate the presence of your teacher. Yeah. And so to really have this sense, for our teachers and for the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that we have a precious human life right now where the Buddha has manifested and taught the Dharma, and the lineage of the teachings still exist. Yeah. And you have these amazing masters. And so, we definitely need to pray for them to live long. And we definitely need to attend their teachings while they're healthy and alive and giving teachings. Because if we don't do it now, then what? Yeah.
The point was made very clear to me when I saw the documentary on the Kala Chakra that they made very long ago, where they were showing this Tibetan monk that was prostrating all the way from, I don't know where he lived, to Bodh Gaya. And then His Holiness was sick. So the whole event was cancelled. That when I watched that documentary, it really, the teaching may not always be there. And then last year when when the Kala Chakra was cancelled.
Right. It was postponed a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it also hit me he's 80 something, and then the teachers are not immortal.
Yeah.
So
we have to make an effort while things are happening. Yeah. So these two branches of really, requesting teachings and requesting them to live long are quite important for our mind, so that we really value the teachings and the teachers and don't just take everything for granted.
Well, I've always thought of this one as creating the cause to actually receive the teachings. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, by requesting, you are creating the cause to receive the teachings. By asking them to live long, you're creating the cause to meet them again. So it has a causal function, but also to create that cause, you have to appreciate the result and want to do that. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so Khenz Rinpoche says, we request spiritual mentors who are not turning the Dharma wheel to teach without delay after they have attained awakening. We then request the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are contemplating passing into parinirvana not to do so, but to stay for a very long time, as long as sentient beings wander in cyclic existence, in order to teach and guide us. So another way, if you feel that you're taking your whole situation for granted about receiving teachings and so on, another way to overcome that is to go back to that point of time in your life when you met the Dharma and say, if I hadn't met the Dharma, how would my life have turned out? What would I have done? Yeah, so that point in time when, you encountered the Dharma. Even if you were born Buddhist, still there's a point in time when you decide you're a Buddhist. And say, okay, if that hadn't happened, and look at where your mind was at that time in your life, and then say, what kind of decisions would I have made? What would I have done? How would my life have had turned out if I had not met the Dharma? Yeah? And I don't know about you, but when I look at that, to me it's quite scary how my life would have turned out. Yeah? Because I would have made a lot of really bad decisions. So, yeah. So then you really begin to appreciate the Dharma. And in my case, I met the Dharma in the West. And so I was thinking how my teachers had to travel. I mean, I saw Buddhist things and all when I was in Asia, but I didn't actually meet teachers and hear teachings, and until I was back in the West. And then I thought of them coming from, the familiarity of the Tibetan community, and okay, the West is a little bit more comfortable than living in Nepal and India, but when you live within your own community and people who speak your own language, and it's just so much easier. But instead you come here with, well, all of us. Yeah. Especially, I mean, the first group of disciples that came along, I mean, we were a number. We were really a number. I keep saying it's not like the people who come along now, And yet, they traveled halfway around the world with jet lag and all, to come here and teach us. And, we didn't know anything. Or they, they taught us in India, Nepal, we went there and they taught us. We had no manners. We would sit in the meditation hall and like this and stretch our feet out and raise our hand in the middle and, get up and go out. I mean, I see people in the middle of His Holiness's teachings get up and go out and go in and out. It's like, you don't do that, But it was like this. And, no respect, no regard, because we didn't know anything. And also, like, who were these guys anyway? And what kind of English do they speak? Yeah. So, so it's really, the whole thing's really, when you think about it, rather remarkable. And so then, because it would have been so much more comfortable and pleasant for them, I'm sure, to teach Tibetans who at least know how to behave. Yeah, rather than us who didn't know how to behave. I think they laughed a lot. Yeah, I heard that that when the Geshis get together, like at one of His Holiness's events or something, when they get to see all their old friends, then they talk about their students and they laugh and laugh and laugh. Yeah, at all the crazy things we do.
And then keep teaching.
And then keep teaching, saying the same thing year after year after year. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of amazing, if you look sometimes at what you're hearing. I remember this happened one time to me. I was reading, a transcript of a recent teaching of one of my teachers. And then I thought, you know, this is the same thing he was saying 20 years ago. Yeah. It sounded different. Because something in me was different. But it was like, boy, he's saying the same thing. Why is he saying the same thing? Because we haven't gotten it yet. Yeah. Oh, because you're doing the transcripts. Yeah. Yeah. But then sometimes you listen to teachings and it's like, wow, I never heard this before. Actually, you've heard it 4 or 5 times. Yeah, but it's... Or, yeah, or just, bounces back. It doesn't even go in and out, it just bounces back.
You're hot for that.
You reading a Dharma book and go, did I read this?
Yeah.
What's your name
Yeah.
on it?
Right. Yeah, try it especially when your name is on the title page. And then you read it and you go, wow. Yeah, who wrote this? That's the way I felt the other night when I was reading that part to you, you know? It was like, I mean, it was His Holiness's words, but like, oh, who, you know, where did this come from? So, anyway, yeah, that's embarrassing. But it happened. I remember when Jeffrey would come here to teach, and he would come in we would be studying one of his books, and he would be carrying the book when he came in, you know. And I thought, oh, maybe he's trying to sell us more copies. But actually, you know, that's the way my mind works. But actually, what he's doing is like once the book is published, then you have the leisure time to read it. Yeah. And really think about it some more that you didn't have when you were meeting deadlines and editing and everything like this. Yeah. Okay, anyway, I better go on. Okay, then 469. Through the merit of doing this, and the merit I have done and will do, may all sentient beings be endowed with unsurpassed bodhicitta. Okay, so this begins a whole sequence on verses of dedicating the merit. Okay, and so, you know, all the merit from doing the 7-limb prayer, the merit that we've created in the past, the merit we will create. And then don't just stop with yourself, you know. I mean, we're one sentient being among countless. So all the countless merit, people, you know, when we say people, it doesn't mean necessarily human beings. Yeah. Any sentient being is a person because they have an I. Yeah. So don't just think people means human beings. But, you know, anything sentient beings have done in the past, are doing now, will do in the future. Yeah, and then you take that whole mass of merit and good energies and you steer it. Yeah, so that all sentient beings will be endowed with unsurpassed bodhicitta. Okay. Now, sometimes you read it and it's like, okay, what's next? But think about it. What would happen if Trump had unsurpassed bodhicitta and Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, and we have to include, Vladimir, isn't that his first name? Yeah, Vladimir. And, you know, and everybody else. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if all those people were endowed with unsurpassed bodhicitta. Yeah.
Love tweets.
Yeah, imagine the tweets we would get. Yeah, love tweets. Imagine, because they're trying to undo Obamacare. Imagine if they had unsurpassed bodhicitta, what kind of health care bill they would make. Yeah. They want to increase the armed forces. If they all had unsurpassed bodhicitta, yeah, they'd make paper planes instead of warplanes. Yeah. So, when you really think about it, it's something quite wonderful to dedicate for. And especially if there's people you don't like, who you think harm you or harm others or whatever, to especially dedicate so that they can have unsurpassed bodhicitta. Be nice, huh? Okay, then 470. May all sentient beings have immaculate faculties and transcend the unfree states. May they control their own actions and live by right livelihood. Okay? So when it says may they have immaculate faculties, faculties can mean a whole lot of different things in different contexts. So it could mean, the 5 faculties of faith, mindfulness, effort, concentration, and wisdom. It could mean faculties like intelligence, healthy sense, cognitive faculties, intelligence, the ability to think, to weigh things, to reach good conclusions. Okay, so faculties can mean a lot of different things, and especially here it's paired with and transcend the unfree states. Yeah, so here it's not referring to Guantanamo. Yeah, and it's not referring to Airway Heights prison. It's referring to the 8 unfree states that prevent having a precious human life. So having good faculties is kind of paired with that. It makes me wonder if it has to do with, having human intelligence, having a healthy body, so that you can really practice the Dharma without being encumbered. Having your senses function properly. Now, if you're deaf, you can get a hearing aid. If you're blind, there's Braille and all. But it's still a hindrance. And imagine when this text was written, there were no hearing aids, there was no Braille, and if those sites didn't function well, it was really a big hindrance. Yeah. So it might be that, it's hard to say. On the other hand, people may have very healthy bodies, they may be very intelligent, and when it comes to the Dharma, they're totally dumb. No interest, can't understand anything. Okay, and so to transcend the unfree states, what are the 8 unfree states? Okay, so you're free from being a hell being, a hungry ghost, an animal. Yeah, one of those perceptionless gods. Okay, so these are gods that are in the form realm, and they're totally spaced out. They deliberately prayed to be born in that kind of state, where they have a moment of consciousness, where they take rebirth, and a moment of consciousness when they die, and the rest of the time it's called, they have neither discrimination nor non-discrimination. I mean, they're really out. And the difference between that and, let's say, in the form realm, the basis of nothingness, is that somebody who's meditating on the basis of nothingness has conscious awareness. I mean, they're spaced out and they're just in their blissful samadhi on nothingness, but they have conscious awareness and they have concentration. Yeah. Whereas these other ones, they prayed, they deliberately wanted to be in this state where they're like unconscious all the time. Yeah, so sometimes perceptionless gods, they have no perception or no discrimination. People, well, I don't know, people have lots of wishes for things that I don't understand. Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe because your thoughts are so troubling to you. Yeah, I mean, if they're just like, I just want to totally, zone out and be unconscious. Yeah, they think it's freedom from suffering, don't they? Yeah, I mean, many of them would mistake this for liberation too. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so those are 4. Yeah, then what are the other 4? Yeah, what's a barbaric land? Yeah, a place where there's no dharma. Yeah, where people behave barbarically. Yeah, what else? Yeah, you've committed any of the 5 heinous actions. You hold very strong wrong views. Yeah, there's no teachings. Yeah, no teachings. There's no presence of a Buddha, no teachings whatsoever. Okay. Yeah, so we've been born in those 8 situations a lot of times in the past.
Does it mean the country only, or like there's some like in Saudi Arabia and all those places, they don't have access? But does it mean just a certain place, or it's?
They usually say at a time when the Buddha has descended, and taught the Dharma, but it seems like it could also mean the place as well. If you live in a place where there's really no possible way for you to meet the Dharma, I mean, really, the most difficult is if there's no Buddhism in the world at all. Period. So there it would be the time. The Buddha. No Buddha has appeared. No Buddha has taught. Wherever you've gone in the world, doesn't matter. You're not going to find it. So that's the worst case scenario. And then probably the other ones, like being born in a barbaric land, that would be being born, even the Buddha's there, but you're born in a place where there's no possibility for you to meet the teachings. Yeah. The Buddha what? Yes, yeah. Yeah. Right after he attained awakening, when he's thinking of who to teach, and they pop into his mind, but they're not there. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to check. I thought the 5 heinous, not having done the 5 heinous actions was one of the 10 fortunes?
Yes, it's having done them. Wait a minute. Yeah, having not done them is one of the 10 fortunes. Actually, it's not one of the.
Yeah.
It's not one of the eight.
Born in the hells, animals, hungry
Goes.
Religious places.
amongst barbarians,
And impaired faculties. Yeah.
long live God
That's-
with a perfect sense
That's
of
it.
holding wrong views and being displeased with the presence.
The Buddha. Yeah. Yeah. Or not having the presence of the Buddha at all. Or having impaired faculties. Yeah. Yeah. Because you may be born as a human being, but if, you don't understand language or something like that, then, yeah, it's a disadvantage. Okay. Any other questions?
It was really occurring to me how these verses that start wishing good things for sentient beings
Mm-hmm.
are really based in rejoicing in the good qualities of others,
Yeah.
which is also wishing good things for others is the opposite of jealousy, just
Yeah.
as rejoicing in what they already have is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these other verses have really led up to this.
Right. Right. Well, by the other verses, you've created the merit, so you have something to dedicate. So when you put forth your good wishes, you're not just they're not just airy fairy. You have some merit behind them.
Right, but I was thinking that they lead your mind to wanting to be in that state of wishing others well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dedicating the merit is a practice of generosity. And when you're practicing generosity, you're wishing others well. Okay. So they say the difference between a prayer and a dedication is a prayer is saying, may it be this way. And a dedication is, I've created merit and I am steering the energy and potency of the merit in that direction.
Or just a comment from someone online earlier who asked whether it seems like people with self-esteem issues suffer greatly from jealousy.
With which issues?
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem issues, yeah, suffer from jealousy. Yep. Yep. Because everybody looks better than them.
It's just a comment, but I was thinking about how you had to travel so far and work so hard to get the Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have to fight so hard to get something, it really makes a difference in our mind.
Yes.
And I can see how, when you're surrounded by the Dharma in a place like Seattle at the time, where it was just easy access,
Mm-hmm.
then this complacent mind, we're sort of sucked into it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it can happen here.
Yeah.
We get here, we're surrounded by the Dharma, and it's like, well, of course there'll be teachings every day of the week. You know? And I think I'll just speak for myself. I'll just, we have to be so careful to look for that.
Mm-hmm.
And as you keep reminding us, this is a training monastery to help each other. Remember that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also think, just from the Seattle experience, that it's easy to not know how important it is until it's gone. That somehow, I mean, I can speak for a lot of people at DFF, we didn't know what we had until we didn't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And also for myself, I can say that I had a lot of arrogance, I think, about how much I thought I had internalized. That I thought I had it within me, and I hear people leave here saying, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to practice," and the intent is there, but we don't know how critical it is to be relying on our teacher and the teachings to keep it going. We just don't know.
Yeah.
And when you lose it, you find out, and if you're lucky, you get to do it again. If you're not, it's really sad.
Yep.